How's it going, church family? Hey, I'm here today with Bess Bloomer. Bess, what's going on?
Not a lot today.
So what are we doing today?
We're going to find out if we can ask questions of God.
If we can ask questions of God. Yep. So what passage are we going to start in?
Mark 1:16 to 27.
Yep. So for the sake of it, I'm going to read and then we're going to be brought to the point, right?
Yes, sir.
And then we'll deliberate a little bit. And we're also going to be in Habakkuk chapter 1 and also looking at questioning God. So verse 16 of Mark chapter 1, as he was going along, and that's Jesus, as he was going along by the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and Andrew, the brother of Simon, casting a net in the sea, for they were fishermen. And Jesus said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you become fishers of men." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. Going on a little farther, he saw James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, who were also in the boat mending the nets. Immediately he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired servants and went away to follow him. Verse 21, they went into Capernaum, and immediately on the Sabbath he entered the synagogue and began to teach. They were amazed at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one having authority and not as the scribes. Just then there was a man in their synagogue with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, saying, "What business do we have with each other, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." And Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be quiet and come out of him." Throwing him into convulsions, the unclean spirit cried out with a loud voice and came out of him. Verse 27, they were all amazed, so that they debated among themselves, saying, "What is this? A new teaching with authority? He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." Immediately, the news about him spread everywhere into all the surrounding district of Galilee. So Bess, we went from 16 to 28 there. But in verse 27, it says, "What is this? A new teaching with authority. He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." What were you picking up in your own personal study, and what are some points that you think are good conversation starters?
Well, to start with was the fact that a lot of times in my life, I've questioned God. My kids got hurt. You didn't protect my kids, or I've got this health problem that I can't do anything about. Mm-hmm. And you question. And then you read and say, well, so does everybody else. You're living in this world, deal with it. Because mm-hmm. There's, if a doctor tells you that quickly, you have to have a cancer operation, mm-hmm. you do not put it off. Mm-hmm.
Right.
You don't say, "Oh, excuse me, but I really don't have time."
Yeah.
You just
I'll wait later. Or,
yeah.
Yep.
But when Christ called you, you don't say later.
Yeah.
When you understand what Christ is asking of you, mm-hmm. you don't find excuses.
Right. Well, we saw the disciples, they picked up, they left immediately, left their business, stopped fishing, all the above.
And I don't think they even really knew why they were willing to do that, mm-hmm. because they kept every sermon, every lesson that Christ taught, they asked questions. Mm-hmm. Why this or why that? Mm-hmm. Well, if they can ask questions, mm-hmm. so can I.
Yeah. You bring across a point that I kind of want to start entertaining and kind of bringing to fruition a little bit. It seems to me that especially in new seasons of life, we ask questions about the Lord. Here, there's at least a principle here where they haven't known Jesus for that long. He's completely new to them. They have some minimal understanding of why they're following him, but his ministry has just begun. Mm-hmm. They see a demon get cast out, and now they're they're essentially marveling. What is this? This is a new season in life for me, and now I'm asking questions I don't understand at all. Yeah. And the question is not out of arrogance or doubt, but the question is there to say, I'm not used to this.
By what authority?
Mm-hmm.
And later on, and maybe real shortly, he tells them by the authority mm-hmm. of my Father. Mm-hmm. Well, they're going to look at him and say, Okay, but what authority did he have?
Right.
He had no authority.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You're talking of Jesus.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So
Unless it was given to him from above.
you bet.
Yep.
You bet.
Yep.
But I think they questioned, you keep reading all the miracles that he did and all the people that he healed. We're all by faith in the people that he healed. But I can see the disciples standing back and saying, I don't get it. And I don't think they ever did, because James and John, like the day before the crucifixion, asked for favor of Christ above the other disciples.
Yeah. Who's going to sit at the highest next to him? And
Who are you going to favor the most? We want that seat.
Right.
You know, we're going to ask you this. And, you know, they fully expected, I think, for him to say, okay, that's what you want. Because all the people that had come to him for healing, he healed because they asked.
And yet he didn't say that.
No, he didn't. He said, you have no idea what you're asking for.
Right. Right.
So
it is interesting to see how aloof the disciples were. And we talked about this before we started recording. It doesn't really seem like they ever fully understood. I mean, even when he would talk about his crucifixion and his resurrection in advance, they didn't understand.
no,
In fact, Peter said, may this never happen. And Jesus said, get behind me, Satan.
yeah,
And as we were talking earlier, it's not until the resurrection where their aloofness, you know, started to unravel and they became more.
when they saw the impossible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't deny that. They might have questioned everything else he did, but they could not deny
Yep.
the resurrection.
So let's take this back to a principle for just a moment. What we see Jesus doing with his disciples and how he's treating them, he doesn't give up or quit on them
No,
throughout their questions. He knows their faith is in him, but he doesn't lose patience to where he just quits and, you know, he responds and,
thank goodness he didn't quit.
oh, right. And I mean, so whether I marvel, whether I'm asking sincere questions, whether I don't understand, you know, it definitely comes down to the heart. But it's interesting that Jesus does answer questions and that he does allow you to ask.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's amazing that after you get through asking questions, if you be quiet long enough, they generally answer you.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah. Yep.
So you're living in this world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what you're here for, is to live in this world and to share what you don't understand, basically, with other people so that it becomes more obvious. That's what the church is for.
Right. I even want to go a step further and just remind us that if we're not continually asking questions, and I don't mean out of arrogance or doubt, but I mean out of marveling and out of intrigue and out of interest. If we don't ask questions, maybe we're not really seeking, we're not really believing, we're not really caring. It seems to me that the more you ask questions, the more you actually show you care.
You bet. The more you learn.
Right. Otherwise, it would seem like you're disengaged. On the subject of the world, you know, there's another passage, Habakkuk chapter 1. So less about discipleship, but Habakkuk, the prophet of the Lord, is now asking God questions because he doesn't understand the circumstances around him. It's almost like with the disciples, they don't quite understand the parables and the teaching and the miracles and the purpose. But in the Old Testament, you've got Habakkuk asking questions about why the world's going crazy. So this is what he says in chapter 1. It's kind of flipped, right? We have a fun time talking, whether this is recorded or not. You're just getting a snapshot of this. Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 1, the oracle which Habakkuk the prophet saw. Verse 2, how long, O Lord, will I call for help and you will not hear? I cry out to you, violence, yet you do not save. Why do you make me see iniquity and cause me to look on wickedness? Yes, destruction and violence are before me. Strife exists and contention arises. Therefore, the law is ignored and justice is never upheld. For the wicked surround the righteous. Therefore, justice comes out perverted. Look among the nations, observe, God says in verse 5. Look among the nations, observe, be astonished, wonder, because I am doing something in your days you would not believe if you were told. For behold, I am raising up the Chaldeans, that fierce and impetuous people who march throughout the earth to seize dwelling places which are not theirs. They are dreaded and feared. Their justice and authority originate within themselves. Their horses are swifter than leopards and keener than wolves in the evening. Their horsemen come galloping. Their horsemen come from afar. They fly like an eagle swooping down to devour. All of them have come for violence. Their horde of faces moves forward. They collect captives like sand. They mock at kings. Rulers are a laughing matter to them. They laugh at every fortress and heap up rubble to capture it. Then they will sweep through like the wind and pass on, but they will be held guilty, they whose strength is their lowercase g, God. And then he asks another question in verse 12, and the dialogue continues. It's just really interesting that Habakkuk essentially says, God, don't you see all that's taken place? And God says, I do. And what if I told you I was doing something in your day you never expected?
Mm-hmm.
And it may not be what you want or desire, but I am doing something. That's intriguing to me, that we could be sitting here today in America and we could be asking that same question, God, don't you see what's happening? And God says, don't worry, I am doing something, and it's for the ultimate good.
I think it's for the renewal of so Christians.
Mm-hmm. Oh, come on. We're going to preach a message now. The wheat and the tares, the sheep and the goats. Come on, Bess Bloomer.
Well, not just that, but people that are solid. I mean, they know they're going to heaven. They know Christ without a doubt, but they've kind of taken it for granted.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll float along on this life raft that we've taken on. And they don't understand that there are a lot of people that wish they knew what in the world is your strength. Where is that coming from? Mm-hmm. Maybe not in the church itself, but I can go to any store in town, and if you smile at somebody, they look at you like you've lost your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, what do you got to be happy about?
Right. Right.
Well, I'm happy because I'm happy.
Yeah. Yep.
You can't make me miserable.
Right.
Well, no, I'll take that back. You mess with my kids, you make me miserable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's that kind of thing, but
yeah,
people don't get it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was a lady, had two little kids. One of them was probably 2. He was going down the aisle and he was fussing, and his mama was telling him to come on. And I looked at him and went, and he turned around, looked at me and went, but he laughed all the way up the aisle. Yeah. Day was a success. But sometimes you do foolish things in order to convey to them that they matter. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And right at the moment, he didn't matter. Mama wasn't paying attention, and he just needed a little encouragement. Yeah. Yeah. But I wouldn't recommend it to every kid that I see. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. Well, if there's anything that we, are trying to show you as the listeners, as we post these once a month, it's a multi-generational discussion. One of the most fun things about meeting with Bess is she has the Spirit of God. I have the Spirit of God. And we just enjoy sitting down and talking about the Bible and talking about life. And this is fun every time we do it. So, by the way, every single time we sit down, I say, Bess, bring the word and bring whatever you've been studying. So the content is determined by her, and I'm just along for the ride. So it's, but it's enjoyable. I want to encourage you as the listeners, meet with those in the body of Christ and glean wisdom from those who are outside of your generation as well. All right. God bless you, church family, and we'll see you Sunday. Take care.